We have two AWOL grandmothers. We have Sherri, who is Hunter's grandmother, and that relationship apparently isn't very even-keeled. We have Candi Hara, who is the grandmother of Summer Wells, who has scarpered, we're told, to Wisconsin, and we're told a couple of different reasons why. I can't imagine either of them being important enough to abandon one of your daughters when she's the mother of a missing girl. It's inconceivable to me, but there you go, everybody's different. Sherri and Candi met, didn't they? I believe that's how the families of Ali, H, Sherri's mum, I believe that's how they were introduced to and got to know the Wells family through the grandmothers. And Sherri is not appearing anywhere or making comment, and I guess this shouldn't be too queer. She doesn't have a good relationship with H, and she's not really involved in the sense of she wasn't there apparently on the day of June 15th, the day we're told these certain events occurred, and she was avoided by H and CANDUS. It makes out as if the rift is between CANDUS and Sherri, doesn't it, rather than Ali and CANDUS. Is the rift only between Ali and CANDUS? I was trying to find the photo that Candice Bly posted, I think, on her Facebook, with a caption that went along the lines of, "This is the cause of the rift," you know, the root of the issue, what sparked off everything that separated the families and broke up the friendships. And it looks like it could be Ali and someone called Jose. We don't know if it's Jose. It's just a person that's lying with their head turned away from the photographer. We can't see their face. And the woman on top of this person is on all fours and head thrown back or something. I don't know. There's masses of curls. And I think it's Ali, but it got me thinking that it could really just be a picture of Sherri and Candi for all intents and purposes. I'm not saying that it is, but to me it always made me think of Sherri and Candi and the nature of their relationship, and what might people surrounding these two think about it if Sherri began a physical or romantic, relationship with Candi. And if Sherri and Candi broke up, we've got Ali and Leslie, talking. Leslie is Ali's friend who doesn't know the Wells family. She doesn't know Candice Bly, okay? Not really. And indeed, Ali didn't know Candice Bly, I think. She can't have known her that well because they weren't friends very long. They had a rift, at least from December, but I'm imagining it was actually in August. I think they tried to sort of paint all of this happening. We know that in October was when domestic violence incidents was reported at the Ben Hill Road property. I mean, let's just go from there, okay? But I remember a date about something happening in August, but October is when Don storms home, Jose's there, and Candi Hara drives him out of the state. Ballsy, isn't it? So she's got form for that type of thing. But you wonder what might have happened if Sherri and Candi had a bit of a falling out. We've got stories of people from Kingsport, this bloke that actually uses their address with some mail, I believe. This bloke that gets in huffs with his wife and he storms off and he stays in one of Don's sheds on the property and he's got a crush on Candi. Who knows what could cause a rift between two lovers or close friends. But, I have a feeling that there's something a bit complex there. I'm not sure why I think that, but when I remember what that photo looked like, it could well be Sherri and Candi. I'm not saying it is. I can't quite remember. I think Ali does have curly hair. I think Sherri wears a dark brown wig, and I don't think she's as large physically as her daughter. But it just gets me thinking about all the dynamics and about all the loyalties and what really drove those two families together and then apart. Do you believe what's said about Jose liking chicks with dicks? Would a man like that, would he be quite open about his preferences, or would he be quite secretive about his preferences? Could something like that be said as a joke? Is it kind of like that throwaway line that says more than people realize, when they say, no, him and he's married, he's got a wife. Is it kind of like that in the way that people say, well, I'm not with them, I like chicks with dicks? Just truly strange. So the two disappeared grandmothers, Candi Hara, we think is in Wisconsin, something like that, either getting an operation on her knee and helping a friend, something like that, something that's more important than supporting her daughter and probably what is the biggest crisis of her life. It must be, no matter what she's gone through, even going to prison in the past. I mean, surely this is the most intense time of Candice Bly's life. Why does Candi want to be far away? Is it guilt? Is it fear? Is it by design? Yeah, it's just so bizarre that she's not around. And you just hope that she's been investigated so thoroughly. Sorry, I'm just pausing a bit and thinking, because I'm thinking, do I want to say anything else? Just have a chat while I'm here. Just trying to think about some of the things I've been pondering and if I could talk about them. Yeah, I did go back to try and find, I went onto the interview room to try to find the second part of that first series, two-part series of interviews that Chris McDonough did with the family at the home in Kingsport. And what I believe happened was he would have interviewed Ellie first and Leslie, and then interviewed Hunter, because then you've got things to keep referencing back to when you're interviewing someone closer to the events, etc., but it was played the opposite way around, and I'm not sure if it's there anymore, but I just wanted to hear the little snippet about how Sherri met the family, because it was Sherri that introduced the Wells to Ellie and etc. And I'm pretty sure it was Candi, but I might be wrong. It could be Candice, but where was Candice meeting people? It doesn't strike me as she's out just making friends and influencing people. She doesn't strike me as the type. It makes me feel sad in a way, because it probably was very nice for CANDUS to have a female friend and to have someone else around and to have someone more of a peer. And if that's something that Candi and Sherri's relationship brought to CANDUS, it's a shame that it's over. But Ellie seems to feel, even though she's only had a brief time frame really of knowing CANDUS, that CANDUS's MO is to be quite flirty, is to look around for attention from males, and maybe CANDUS felt like the pretty friend. It could really be sour grapes there, but Ellie needs to remember it does take two to tango, and Jose's denying tangoing with either of you, and maybe that's wise for many reasons. And CANDUS has told Don when he's returned from Utah, he's telling how fast he drove, and he's forgetting that he's reporting this story, making decisions about the safety of his son in the car with him. Or did he just leave his son in Utah, get Josie back a little bit later? No, he would have thrown everything in the truck as well as Josie, and he's driven bat out of hell back to basically, save his face, And CANDUS has said, no, Jose is a boyfriend of someone else, or, maybe just said he's Allie's boyfriend. It's all a big mess, but, it's trying to pull the threads, isn't it, and work out what has impact on the disappearance of Summer. You could say none of it, or you could say all of it, because it all is creating her environment. If you imagine her ecosystem that she's in, she's fully reliant on the adults in her life, and to a small degree her brothers, but her environment is controlled entirely by the adults around her. She's a young child, so she's like a fish in a tank, and the quality of her water and the type of food, and her ability to survive, let alone thrive, she has absolutely no power over at all. She has zero control, and everything that we've seen and discovered and been learning, even if we're not quite interpreting it correctly because we don't have all the facts, what does it tell you about the ecology? I feel like she had very little chance to thrive because she's in danger constantly. What else can we have a chat about? We could talk about, do we think it's ever going to be solved? We could talk about peripheral players further than just Sherri and Ellie and H. But, beyond perhaps David Dotson and Robin Lane, what do they have to do with Summer's disappearance? I mean, they too are part of her ecosystem. And David Dotson, isn't it interesting? This is just something I'm just, adding to the banks because, he's been a pilot. He's introduced the boys to going up in a plane. I mean, these boys had a great life, didn't they? They've got their basketball net. They're going up in planes. They've got motorcycles. They're going off to school. What did Summer have beyond her puppy Lucky and her swing. Don musing about pets and, whether they go to heaven. Where's Lucky? Is Lucky still at the house? Was Lucky taken with Summer somehow? I would like to know that the dog's still there. And speaking of the dogs, Don's had opportunities to say, well, the dogs weren't there that day, but instead he's just said, they don't bark. Now it turns out that the entire pack of dogs weren't at the house, according to the Gospel of Don, on the day that Summer disappeared. But we do have CANDUS Bly complaining that when law enforcement officers came to the Ben Hill property with their trained dogs, she was very annoyed because they didn't give her a heads up so that she could put her pack of dogs away, because she felt that the pack of dogs were distracting working dogs and actually just messing up their powers of scent and messing up their ability to work, and made them unable to concentrate. And she was appalled because she thought this was very bad of the law enforcement officers to not let her know. She thinks that the dogs didn't have the best chance to find her daughter. I would put it to you that it would be very hard to find a clear scent of Summer unless it was the clothing that she wore that day, or that damned pillow, or, letting them smell grandmother's Silverado's back seat. Maybe that's what they had to do to get a scent, because of the junkyard of the house, because the kids are rambling around all together, running up and down the tracks. Do you think Summer doesn't follow those boys on their motorcycles everywhere? Don has said, so why wouldn't she follow them down the track, even a little way beyond the generator? Just remembered a really good song by Regurgitator. So her scent would be everywhere, but mucky and inconclusive, because it's not like you're at a holiday home in Pradaloo where maybe it could have been followed down the street if she'd wandered off and she wouldn't have really been there much, and all the clothing and the sheets and towels in the home, they're all jumbled in together. Everyone's scent is on everything. It's useless to give the trained working dogs those scents because they're just not clear of Summer. I don't know what the police would have used. Hopefully the pillow. We don't know when the dogs came and when Candi Hara left. So we don't know if they got that pillow to use as a scent. The only thing that might be a clear scent of Summer. I don't think the dogs were set up for success here. This would be nothing on the dogs. I mean, I don't know what their record is. I don't know what type of dogs they were. But I believe they were simply scent dogs to trace a scent. And I think pretty much any dog except the terribly ill-bred brachycephalic dogs with the shortened noses, who probably still have better scent than human beings, but I don't think they were set up to succeed. I think they were there with a very difficult task. Do you know what I'm saying? And if a scent was taken down the track, I mean, we don't know that the boys were inside the whole time. CANDUS Bly did post that photo of her boy Josie in his moto gear. Was Summer running around following the motorcycle? Was there a motorcycle accident down on that track? Did the boys put Summer into the shed? Who called Don and said, come and get Summer out of the shed? Or did Candace would do anything for the boys, wouldn't she? She would hide Summer, I think, for the boys, to save the boys. I don't know how they're keeping the secret all this long. I don't know, but they might think, yeah, well, it was an accident, so I'm not going to feel guilty and I can keep quiet about them. Now, I don't know how guilt eats up these young boys, if it's true. I don't know anything about that because I don't know them, who they are, what has happened. I'm not trying to cast aspersions on them. I'm just trying to discuss a scenario whereby Summer's scent would be down that track. What was she doing there? Putting it together with what we saw, which was a photo that CANDUS uploaded of her boy in motocross gear. Now, 21 minutes later, was CANDUS on the phone to Don? Or had this happened at 5:30, as might be the case, by 5:30, CANDUS is on the phone to Don then, and as part of a sort of cover-up, CANDUS then uploads a photo because it's got Summer's little arm and purple dress in the photo, but none of it makes real sense, right? And do you find that these people that make these convoluted stories and things like this, I've worked around people like this and with people that are, just, they're either natural born grifters or they are like that because of lifestyle and just how they have manipulated their own personalities, and there is a certain culture or there's a certain subset of people that are really good at muddying those waters, right? It's just they can naturally do it, and it's very discombobulating. And it's not to say that, fact can't be extrapolated and that things can't be tied down, but for various just, people looking in and trying to work out what's going on, you have to have a very good handle on that person. You have to know them, you have to know their lives, and it can be very hard to understand what the truth is when you're outside looking in, even if you think you can see a lot, and even if you think you know a lot about human nature. But you just need to understand about the Wells family, okay, and possibly Ellie's family too, that this is natural. This is natural to them. This is their lifestyle. This is how they operate. It's their MO, just to keep rocking the boat, and it's how they move around with things through life, because it's how they get their way, I hope it does all come crumbling down for the person that's responsible for the missing person, Summer Wells, regardless of it being anything to do with her immediate family or her grandmother, for example. It's that ecosystem that she's living in that has really made it possible for her to disappear off the face of the planet, for something nefarious to happen to her. She was a child living in danger, I believe. Her life was not one of safety and security, of attachment, of optimism, and that is so sad to say, because she seems to have been a little girl that had a lot of spark and a lot of zest. Some of it looks to be directed, which is very sad. But she was a girl that hopefully with opportunity could have flourished, and she didn't even get the chance to go to school and to start meeting other people and to have her worldview changed, and be shown how some people live, and to learn some things that are acceptable or not, to have boundaries placed upon her, ones that keep her safe. And I'll say it again, we've still got these social justice warriors, these triggered people. I wonder if they're triggered because they don't want to be judged, or if they just naturally fight for what they think is the underdog. I don't know, but we've got these people, these SJWs, supporting Donald Wells in the fact that he slept with his daughter every night in his bed, okay, after his confessions of sexual abuse, improper conduct while he was a much older person with his stepsister. He has talked about this. And with Donald Wells, you know that if he says touching thingies, you can pretty much be assured that it means non-consensual rape, because he downplayed Donald Wells Jr.'s record, and what that was for with regards to being a child abuser. He says, well, it was something that wasn't as bad as people say, because they had probably 18, year to 18 months apart. My son was 18, so he's trying to make out that the girl was 16, 17. But the girl that Don Wells Jr. went to prison for abusing was 14, and Don Wells Jr. was 19. So if Donald Wesley Wells is saying that it was consensual with his stepsister, who says she was 5 at the time the abuse began, and he says it's basically it was mutual masturbation, is what he's trying to tell us. You can pretty much jump right to that conclusion that much, much worse took part. I have mentioned it before when talking about the Ramsey case. So I was talking about the age of boys and girls when, they have various sexual awareness changes, and how development goes, and, how what people are exposed to can really form, it imprints their sexuality, and it can do for the rest of their life. And we indeed know this when it comes to sexual abuse. And we can also understand that when maybe kink or fetish or various acts are shown to a child at various age, or thrust upon them, or when they are exposed to things beyond times that they can process a certain way, it's like showing a child pornography, showing a 4-year-old boy pornography, for example, right? This does interrupt natural development of their sexuality and just persona and ego and everything, and it does change how people go through the rest of their life, right? It's not disgusting for natural human sexuality to be something children are aware of in a household, and indeed this was how it used to be much more commonly, normally, averagely, regularly. I don't know how to describe this, but you think of human beings developing in their family units and tribes, etc. Children are there with the parents, and this is a heterosexual, quite natural relationship, and children grow up and mirror these relationships. They grow up and they seek out an opposite sex partner, unless of course they are homosexual, okay? Look, we could go down the nitty-gritty, you know what I mean, right? And they do the same, and they have a monogamous sexual relationship, or whatever it is that the culture and society that they're growing up in, it teaches them as they go from birth to death, okay? But in those formative years. So when you've got children that are exposed, so I'm just trying to say that if Donald Wells was not a pervert and Mother Candice Bly wasn't passed out on booze and drugs nightly, it would be perfectly okay. It's up to the individuals if they're co-sleeping with children or not, right? It's probably healthier to get some distance after a certain age and for a child to develop independence and for the parents not to have codependence. But, it can be perfectly healthy. We're not judging that. I'm not. But when a child is exposed to degenerative people, okay, to their sick fantasies, to their warped ideas about boundaries, sexual health, ownership, autonomy, it's very, very dangerous. And I've had friends that have told me of moments in their life when they were very young that have molded exactly who they became as people, sexually and otherwise. And it's fact, okay? So when you have, these, take everything that I'm saying as I could give you an hour-long explanation on what all the ins and outs and pros and cons, the nitty-gritty. Don't just take these blanket statements. It's just to be quick and succinct. But, you've got single mothers who expose their children to, oh, you're gay, you are trans, it's all right, rather than just observing, acknowledging the child and how they want to express themselves as they're growing. They really see one thing, that the parent in them seems to leave and something comes out in them where they just damage their child by manipulating them and overpowering them and being overbearing with what that child is then exposed to, and they create a Desmond is amazing for their own purposes. And these SJWs who are just saying, they excuse it by saying, no, I'm just open-minded and I'm giving him what he needs. They're just not objective. They just can't see how sick they are. A child can grow up perfectly capable of being homosexual, being having gender dysphoria without being smothered by a parent who is too selfish to allow their child their own life. Do you know what I'm saying? They own that child. They own that person. They don't let that person discover who they are naturally through the different phases of their life. I mean, okay, someone wanted to cut her hair short, let's say. These SJWs are going to go, oh, I'm going to dress her in boys' clothes now and I'm going to make her play with trucks and I'm going to talk to her about penises and, doesn't she wish she had one and does she like, or whatever it is, it's so sick. It's so sad. It's so sad. And there are people out there making excuses for Don Wells now, saying that he's a changed man. He was a kid when he did it. I mean, he went right back after getting out of jail at 19 to go and try it on again. Luckily, the woman was 12 years old at the time and much more confident, much more able to stand up for herself. And she went to her mother. And Don explains it away. He says, well, she'd hooked up with someone else, her cousin whom she married, so I was pushed out, what was me? Oh, he's dumped. He thought he had true love. He was dumped. He was rejected, wasn't he? Yeah, he was rejected because she said, no, you're not going to rape me anymore. You're not abusing me anymore, you sick fuck. Okay? And Don Wells was 19 years old at the time, the age of his son, who was abusing a 14-year-old, 14 and 12. There's a reasonable amount of difference, but, you kind of get the feeling that Donald Wells Jr. learned from somewhere, didn't he? Don learned from somewhere. His father learned from somewhere. this family, the step family everywhere. It's just, we've got Candi, Hara's brother, sexual perversion, serious enough to have him put away in a psychiatric hospital, I believe, or some sort of criminal unit with psych care. I've wondered, does Candi Hara abuse Summer? I've really wondered that about grandmother. Not saying, because she's gay, a female child is in trouble, but Candice Bly didn't want a female child for a reason. Was it for Don? Was it for Candi and what she knows about them? It's so hard to work out, isn't it? Because all these relationships, they're still hanging out with each other, living on the same property. Does it seem to you, sorry, this is so rambly, does it seem to you like Candice has sort of abused that Ben Hill property? She's invited all these people there. She has people living there. I mean, this is Don's property, isn't it? Or is it? Is the shed down the bottom, is that the land that he sold? Is that no longer his shed down near Beach Hill Road? And there's the tracks that go in and out of that road from the main road, Beach Hill Road, into that big shed, that corrugated iron shed. It's getting used a lot. But is it used by Don? I'm trying to work out where the land is that he would sell, because no one's going to buy 2 acres of that shit wooded area. You can't do anything with it without spending a lot of money, right? But down on Beach Hill Road, that would be valuable property. 2 acres just down there. It looks about 2 acres, doesn't it? That little triangle of land. So this has been all over the shop. But, I'm just questioning so many relationships. And, yeah. And it just sounds like I'm painting with tar all of these cultural groups and things. And I'm not. I'm open-minded. I do understand things a lot more than it might sound. I'm not passing that much judgment. It would be like, hey, I'm not passing judgment on the carnies, but let's not forget that Don and Candice travelled as carnies for years together. And, that's about salesmanship, let's say, okay? And entertainment, and it's all, you go there expecting just to be entertained, and that there's some, there's twists and turns behind it, and there's some, talent behind it, isn't there? So let's just say that. Wow, this is letting me record for a while. Usually it stops and it will start a new video. Anyway, I've got to go. I don't know if anyone will listen all the way through. I always say put it on 2.0 if you want to hear everything. I just thought I'd have a chat. I've not really said much. But just, just some things I'm mulling over. Speak to you later.